The re-election of Donald Trump has become a significant source of concern for the European Union, arguably more so than for any other US ally. As one of the largest trading partners of the United States, the EU is already experiencing rising tensions with its transatlantic counterpart following a series of energy crises sparked by Ukraine's halt to Russian energy transit, Qatar's cessation of gas exports to Europe, and Azerbaijan's suspension of supplies due to unexplained technical issues. The EU is grappling with an increasingly precarious energy situation. These challenges were compounded by a fresh round of US sanctions on Russian oil and gas, causing a surge in global energy prices. The repercussions have been severe for the EU, with gas prices skyrocketing, public dissatisfaction with the European Commission mounting, and inflation continuing to weigh heavily on economies across the continent. Adding to the strain, Trump has announced plans to impose new tariffs on European goods, further jeopardizing the already fragile EU-US relationship. Such measures are poised to have lasting impacts on the EU economy, compounding existing challenges and threatening the region's economic stability. In response, the EU is taking decisive steps to mitigate the potential fallout, recognizing the need to reduce its reliance on US trade and demonstrate its economic resilience. The bloc has accelerated efforts to diversify its trade partnerships globally. A key element of this strategy is the recently concluded free trade agreement with Mexico, a US neighbor. This deal not only strengthens the EU's position in North America, but also serves as a signal of its ability to forge significant alliances outside the US sphere. Additionally, the EU has secured a landmark free trade agreement with South American countries, cementing its commitment to expanding its global trade network ahead of Trump's inauguration. Through these moves, the EU aims to shield itself from potential US economic pressures while asserting its role as a major player in global trade. These alliances are more than economic. They are geopolitical statements of the EU's intention to navigate and counteract the challenges posed by a second Trump presidency. In this video, we explore the EU's retaliatory measures and their potential impact on the relationship between the United States and the European Union. The European Union and Mexico have finalized a modernized trade agreement, marking a significant enhancement of their economic partnership. This updated accord, concluded on January 17, 2025, aims to reduce both parties' economic dependence on the United States, especially in light of anticipated US tariff increases under President-elect Donald Trump. Key features of the EU-Mexico trade agreement include tariff elimination, removing high tariffs on various EU exports to Mexico, including agricultural products such as cheese, poultry, pork, pasta, apples, jams, chocolate, and wine. This is expected to boost EU agri-food exports significantly. Market access. EU companies will gain improved access to Mexican government contracts, investments, and service sectors, including financial services and telecommunications. This ensures that EU firms receive treatment on par with Mexico's other preferential trade partners, such as the US and South Korea. Sustainable development commitments. The agreement includes enforceable commitments on labor rights and environmental protections, reflecting both parties' dedication to sustainable development. Critical raw materials supply. The deal aims to strengthen the supply chain of critical raw materials, ensuring a sustainable and secure supply essential for various industries. This modernized agreement updates the original EU-Mexico Global Agreement, which has been in force since 2000. The new accord is designed to reflect the evolving economic landscape and deepen the strategic partnership between the EU and Mexico. The agreement must now undergo ratification by both EU and Mexican lawmakers before it can enter into force. This process is expected to face scrutiny from various stakeholders, including European farmers concerned about increased competition. The European Union and the Mercosur bloc, comprising Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, have finalized a comprehensive trade agreement after 25 years of negotiations. This accord aims to establish one of the world's largest free trade zones, encompassing over 700 million people and nearly 25% of global GDP. Key provisions of the EU-Mercosur trade agreement include tariff reductions, the agreement plans to eliminate tariffs on over 90% of goods traded between the EU and Mercosur nations, potentially saving EU companies approximately €4 billion annually in export duties. Market access: EU industries, including automobiles and chemicals, will gain improved access to Mercosur markets, while South American agricultural products such as beef and poultry will have increased entry into the EU. To specific quotas sustainability, both parties have agreed to uphold the Paris Climate Agreement and implement measures to prevent deforestation by 2030. The deal includes dispute settlement and mechanisms to enforce these commitments. Despite the potential economic benefits, the agreement faces opposition within the EU, particularly from farmers and environmental groups. Critics argue that the influx of South American agricultural products could undercut European farmers and raise concerns about environmental standards. French President Emmanuel Macron has expressed strong reservations, seeking additional safeguards and sustainable commitments. For the agreement to come into effect, it requires ratification by all 27 EU member states and approval from the European Parliament. Given the existing opposition, particularly from countries with significant agricultural sectors, the ratification process may encounter challenges and could extend over several years. Let's now talk about the EU-US relationship over the years. Early engagements and formalization. The US's engagement with Europe post-World War II laid the groundwork for its relationship with what would later become the European Union, EU. The Marshall Plan in 1948 was pivotal in rebuilding Europe, providing financial aid to war-torn nations to stabilize their economies and promote regional cooperation. The US also supported the formation of the European Coal and Steel Community, ECSC, in 1951, viewing it as a mechanism to prevent future conflicts between France and Germany by integrating key industries. In 1954, the EU's precursor established its delegation in Washington, D.C. to manage growing economic ties. This relationship deepened with the establishment of the United States mission to the European communities in Brussels in 1961, symbolizing a mutual commitment to fostering political and economic cooperation. Formation of security alliances. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, the United States emerged as a global leader, actively shaping the post-war international order. Recognizing the growing threat posed by the Soviet Union, the US took decisive steps to contain Soviet expansion and promote democratic values. In response to the Soviet Union's increasing influence in Eastern Europe and actions such as the Berlin blockade, the United States spearheaded the formation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, in 1949. This collective defense pact included the US, Canada, and several Western European nations, committing each member to mutual defense in the event of an attack. The US played a pivotal role not only as a financial benefactor, but also as a military ally, stationing troops in Europe and appointing General Dwight D. Eisenhower as NATO's first Supreme Commander. President Harry S. Truman introduced the Truman Doctrine in 1947, marking a significant shift in US foreign policy. This doctrine declared that the US would support free peoples resisting subjugation by armed minorities or external pressures, specifically targeting the spread of communism. Initially, it provided substantial economic and military aid to Greece and Turkey to prevent them from falling under Soviet influence. This policy laid the foundation for the US's strategy of containment throughout the Cold War. Complementing these efforts, the US launched the Marshall Plan in 1948, a massive economic aid program aimed at rebuilding war-torn Europe by revitalizing European economies. The plan sought to create stable conditions where democratic institutions could thrive, thereby reducing the appeal of communist ideologies. The success of the Marshall Plan further solidified Europe's alignment with American policies during the early Cold War period. The Korean War from 1950 to 1953 significantly strengthened military cooperation between the United States and its European allies within the framework of NATO. The conflict underscored the perceived threat of communist expansion, prompting NATO to establish the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, SHAPE, in 1951, with General Dwight D. Eisenhower appointed as the first Supreme Allied Commander. This development marked a pivotal step in NATO's evolution from a political alliance to a comprehensive military organization. However, the Suez Crisis of 1956 exposed underlying tensions within the alliance when Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal. The United Kingdom and France, in conjunction with Israel, launched a military intervention to regain control. The United States, under President Eisenhower, opposed this action, fearing it would destabilize the region and push Arab nations toward the Soviet sphere of influence. Consequently, the US exerted diplomatic and economic pressure on its European allies to withdraw, highlighting divergent interests and signaling a shift toward a more independent European foreign policy.